I'm Bill Collings, Collings Guitars. I started because I always loved guitars as a kid, and I experimented. I did a lot of looking at guitars and wondering what made them sound good. And if I could figure that out, I always wanted to know what a good sounding guitar was, and in that interest, I went down that hole, and it turned out that people actually made guitars, and I figured out that I didn't know how, but figured out maybe I could make a guitar, so I just did. I mean, it was actually that simple. It took about a year of me thinking about it, getting all the stuff together, and then basically sit down on my kitchen table and made a guitar. You still want to change things, make things better, and you're working towards perfection, and that's something that every day we think the guitars we make today will be better than ones yesterday, so we're trying to improve on that at all times. In process, in wood choices, and in thicknesses and everything. We make 7 guitars a day. We make 3 mandolins a day and 3 electric guitars a day. I figured if I was going to improve on my guitar process, I needed to get out of it for a little bit and started a new way of making a mandolin. So I developed a different way of manufacturing or making a mandolin in a high quality way that I could possibly put into my guitars. For many years, people said, why don't you make an electric acoustic? And I never saw the value of amplifying an acoustic guitar because it doesn't work that well. So I decided to make an acoustic electric, which was, I wanted to make a guitar that was more acoustic. So when you amplified it, you could get the warmth of the guitar to drive the pickup rather than the solidness of the guitar. I didn't know that you could have a guitar too acoustic and it wouldn't pick up well. You had to have the right signals from that wood to really get the best part of the pickup to work without adding too much information. So we had to balance out. It was the same balancing act in electrics as it was in acoustics, trying to get the stuff to work so it worked well with the pickups. And that was a much bigger process than I thought. But in an acoustic guitar, you get to vary the thicknesses of the wood and the braces, so, because all wood's different. You have to, let's call it, voice that guitar. It's a lot easier to voice individual acoustic guitars than it is individual electrics. You know, you can't change the pickup on every guitar. You got to try to make this pile of wood react similar in all models so they work well. But what I wanted to do is use real wood on my electrics rather than plywood for my semi-hollows, and that just opened up different problems. That is too much information, and I had to find a way to subdue it and make it the right and better information than a plywood guitar. You'd think plywood bad, but not necessarily, you know. But this is a nice Brazilian rosewood. It's an odd little piece of wood because it's kind of a slabby piece of wood and very pretty for Brazilian. Normally it's more quartered or whatever. This is more slab. This is showing the flat figure of the wood. It's quite pretty. And the sides match it, so it's a real neat piece. Fancy guitars and non-fancy guitars all go through the same line. You got to remember, we make 7 a day, and we just divide that by how many people. So it's probably in the 60 to 70 hours, somewhere in there. Fancy is just when it gets a little abalone, a little different thing than normal, which would be, normal would be no ab, no binding. All those things add time. Binding adds time, this binding adds time, that adds time. And you know, when it's fancier wood, it adds time because we look at it, we play with it, we worry about it and seeing it differently, who knows. We started varnish on guitars because I started it on mandolins, and it worked so well for mandolins, I wanted to try it on guitars. A guy named Charlie Darrington that worked for Gibson told me it was like the thing that made theirs sound good versus okay, and I didn't believe him, so on my own I said, let me just try to do this, and I varnished one and went, my God, that's a good mandolin. And then I called Charlie and said, you were right, Charlie, and thank you. So ever since, I said, man, what would you do on a guitar? And then it was like, oh my, it really works. It's a very thin finish. It's about 2 to 3 mils versus 7, and it's very flexible. It allows the wood to flex very easy and vibrate easy, where the lacquer tightens it up a little bit. And it's not that lacquer's bad, it's just different, okay? These have a different rise. They seem to take very little to drive and then come off and give you a little more, where lacquer might punch a little harder and then decay. But it's a different thing. And in a mandolin or a little instrument, that really adds up a lot too, because it's not much there. So you want to let it flex a lot, and that's what I like about it. So people that hear it, they can hear it.